Okay, I'm sorry I got cut off on that last video. But for question 41, you're looking at the New Netherlands over here in Europe, and who eventually took control of the New York area is going to be England, and that's why it's called New York, Duke of York, okay? So question 42 is, what is the significance of Bacon's rebellion and who were its main supporters? So Nathaniel Bacon is just a poor frontier guy, and he is going to lead a bunch of other poor frontier guys against the rich Virginians. So when you look at Virginia, Virginia is being controlled by the rich plantation guys. And so Bacon and other poor people really couldn't get any land, and then their taxes kept going up and up and up. So as the taxes went up, Bacon he was going to lose his farm, and so what he decides to do is rebel. So as he rebels, he really does go through towns in Virginia, and the rebellion kind of spreads. And as the rebellion is spreading, Virginia is able to finally put it down. But as they put it down, it kind of shows that these frontiermen and these former indentured servants are angry, and you probably shouldn't be their friend. So it made those rich plantation guys question that whole indentured service system. You know, why should you bring these guys over here anymore? Why not just bring slaves? So what Bacon's rebellion kind of does is it makes the plantation owners more and more entrenched in slavery. So Bacon's rebellion is really trying to, get the taxes down on his land and try and get land for these frontier guys. But in the end, it doesn't work for him, and those rich plantation guys now are going to focus more on slavery and importing more slaves and building up their slave population. So question 43 is, list the voting requirements in colonial America. Pretty much you had to be a white guy, so you're a white male landowner, and you had to be a member of the colony's church. So they really had a lot of theocracies. So when you think of the Pilgrims and you think of the Puritans, you had to be members of their church in order to vote on any issues. And if you weren't a member of the church, you weren't able to vote. Now notice, white male landowners. If you were a woman, you didn't count. If you were a white guy who didn't own any land, you didn't count. So, and that land was a significant amount of land. It wasn't just like a little square tile. So you had to actually own a little bit more than that. Question 44 is, who founded the Quakers? And then you had to list 3 of their beliefs. The founder of the Quakers is William Penn. So William Penn's over in England, and they're like this brotherhood of man. So a lot of people, they're very different than everybody else because they believe that no one's a stranger. If your neighbor doesn't have anything, then you would give to them. So this brotherhood of man is what the Quakers are known for. They're pacifists, and they're very friendly with the American Indians. This is actually one of those like paintings, those primary sources, those engravings that show it. They'll buy land from the American Indians. They do try and convert the American Indians, but for the most part, everybody is their equal. They don't believe in slavery. They don't believe that anybody should lack. Okay, so if your neighbor didn't have food, you would help them out. Question 45 is, which had the best schools, Southern, Middle, or New England colonies, and why? The best schools in the colonies were in New England, and part of that is because they had taxes. So tax-supported public schools like Cape Fear High School, it actually helps people out. If you were rich, you'd be able to pay for your kid to go to a private tutor or a school, so that's great. But if you are poor or you're just making do at middle class, you're kind of screwed. So maybe you don't know how to read and write, so who's going to teach your kids? And maybe you do know how to read and write, but every second of your day needs to be out there in the farm or in the business, making sure that you can survive in colonial America. It's not going to be fixated on education. So in the New England colonies, they actually pay people to do that for them, and they do it based off taxes that they raise. And this will be true for a really long time in the United States. So after we become the United States, you're going to see in the New England area tax-supported schools. So that tradition stays on. So 46 is, where did the Salem witch trials take place, and what religious group was really behind it. So the Salem witch trials are in the Bay Colony, Massachusetts Bay Colony. Salem is short for Jerusalem, so they believe that they're going to be the new holy city, and that's part of the reason why they're calling it that. And the religious group behind it is the Puritans. Remember, the church leaders are also your people who run your government. So it's a theocracy. So when you're on trial, you are on trial in your court, but it's your court church. So naturally, you're going to be found guilty. And so 19 people are killed, mostly women. You do have a male who is pressed to death. But as time goes on, it gets a little too crazy and, wild. So the governor steps in and puts into it. What you need to take from the Salem witch trials is that it shows that a separation of church and state are needed. So you can't have religious law in the United States enforced in a courtroom. So we do a separation, so that when our founding fathers were thinking of this, that's why they wanted that separation of church and state. And by the time the founding of the United States comes around, you have hundreds of different religions. So 47, he that will not work will not eat. You need to know whose quote it is and what colony this quote is actually associated with. So the guy who said it is John Smith, so the hero of Jamestown. He comes over here and the starving time has happened in Jamestown. They don't have any food. They've actually reportedly resorted to cannibalism at the night. And so he goes, you can't sit on the sideline. You have to work. And if you don't work, you don't eat. So I'm sorry that you're not a farmer, but you're going to have to learn how to be a farmer. And so these guys who really didn't have any farm skills, who didn't have any hunting skills, who didn't have any of these skills, they suddenly now have a motive to get those skills because he's not going to allow them to eat. And it really does save Jamestown. And so later you'll get tobacco that will make this colony profitable. So what colony is the quote associated with is Jamestown. So 48 is the Toleration Act came from which colony and what did it give the Christians? So the Toleration Act is going to be from Lord Baltimore, and he is going to set up the colony of Maryland as a proprietary colony. And what did it give Christians? If you are a Christian, whether you're Catholic or you're Protestant, you can come to Maryland and worship freely. They're not going to do anything. And they call it Mary Land after Queen Mary, the Catholic Queen of England, who, she died, and then her sister, Queen Elizabeth, comes to the throne. So I've gone over the study guide. You should have all the answers. There's no reason why you shouldn't have them. And I'll see you on the exam day. Good luck.